Hey everybody, welcome back to the Labs Comic Fan. I'm Steve, and today we're talking 2022's Gambit number 2. Would like to thank all the new subscribers, guys. We're growing slowly but surely. I really appreciate all of you. And if you're watching the video now and you want to subscribe, just hit the button. It's very simple to do. And for the rest of you guys, remember, always put your thumbs in the upright position. So I have a correction to make from the last video that I did for Black Panther Unconquered. It was brought to my attention in this really nicely worded comment that was only a one-shot. It's not an ongoing series, so that's on me. That's my fault. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
How dare you?
We're just gonna move on right into Gambit number 2. On the banks of the Mississippi River, heading south from Cairo, Illinois, Remy and Ro are heading to whatever is next for them. Ro is having a time of her life, enjoying the freedom of the road the thief life offers, but everything is about to change. In front of them, on the narrow cliffside road, are two oncoming cars. With no place for Gambit to get through, he makes the only move he can. He's gonna thread the needle. Everything is moving so fast, and before there's any time to react, they're already falling off the side of the cliff to the water below. The impact is brutal, and it's an old car, no airbags. Gambit is stopped by the steering wheel, Ro the windshield. The car has flipped upside down and sinking quickly. Gambit is still conscious, but Ro isn't, and she needs saving. She's not moving. She has a huge gash on her head, and it's bleeding badly. He tries to get her out, but she's pinned. He has to think quickly. Only one shot at this. He charges the cards and pushes them behind her seat. The force of the blast breaks his grip on her, and the current is pulling them apart. The water is dark, and if he loses sight of her, she's done for. She's just out of reach, but there's something else in the water. A person. They grab Ro and they go to the surface. Above the water, a woman has Ro. Gambit screams to get her to shore. She's hurt badly. They make it ashore, but Ro needs CPR. She's not breathing. Minutes later, in the woman's truck, they got Ro breathing again, but she's not conscious. Gambit asks how far to the nearest hospital. The woman says too far, but her mother is a doctor. They'll go there. She can make it in no time. Gambit tells her to punch it. Holding Ro in his arms, Gambit thinks to himself that this can't be how Ro's story ends. They were just getting started. So Gambit and Ro are in a car, and they're driving on this really crappy cliffway, and it just doesn't look good. It's a narrow road, dude, and it's like wherever they're going, of course, it's just gonna be terrible to get to. Just terrible roads. But they look like they're having fun. Ro really looks like she's enjoying her life right now. And they're going around a curve, but coming at them is two cars. And Gambit, the only thing that he can do is try to get between them. And when he does, they're already off the side of the cliff. And they plunge into the water. They each hit their face. Gambit off the steering wheel, Ro off the windshield. She's out cold. He's trying to save her. He can't. She's pinned. The car's sinking quick. Got to do something or they're both dead. So he uses his cards. Boom. The explosion hits her a little bit further away from his grip. He's got to get her. If he doesn't, she's done for. And that's when he notices this figure. It's a person grabbing Ro and going to the surface. And Gambit gets to the surface. He notices that's a woman, and he's yelling at her, hey, we got to save her. She's hurt real bad. They get to the shore, and the woman's like, we got to give her CPR. She's not breathing. A couple minutes later, they're in her truck, and they got her breathing again, and Gambit's like, where's the nearest hospital? She's like, too far, but my mother is a doctor. And he's like, let's go. Let's get this. And while he's sitting there, he's like, man, he's holding her, and he's thinking, he's like, this can't be it. This can't be it for you, Ro, man. We're just getting started. Man, this issue starts off pretty crazy, dude. Like, car accident just didn't look really good by the likes of it, And we're going to find out who this woman is and how this is going to go on playing forward. So over the next couple pages, we find some really, really cool information. Ro is like asleep, but she's also kind of awake. She's in this like dream world, but it seems to be real to her. There's a woman sitting there, and her name is Ashake, and she calls Ro Aurora, and she says, I am your grandmother, so many times removed. She came to help after she heard Ro scream. Ro wants to know where they are, and she said, look, we're in a safe place, and you fought the Shadow King. just as Ashake did. And the Shadow King's never going to give up until he has his vengeance. But with Ashake's training, Ro will learn to disappoint him. So this is interesting. I'm assuming it's some sort of telepathy or something like that that's being used, because she's obviously with Gambit and this woman, but she's also in this other plane of existence being trained by this mystical grandmother named Ashake. And apparently she had battled with the Shadow King before, just like Ro did. And she's going to help Ro get the training that she needs to defeat him, or at least, you know, as they said, to disappoint him, so she can at least defend herself against the Shadow King and not have to have it be relied on luck. So they arrive at the woman's house, and it's a very close call for Ro. Her vitals are stable, though, and we meet the doctor. The woman who brought Ro there is named Marissa, and Marissa's mother tells Gambit, you know, you can relax. She's a fighter. She's going to be okay. It might be a while, but she's going to be okay. And Gambit is very thankful, but he has another favor to ask. Gambit asks Marissa to take him back to the crash site so he can retrieve some of the stuff out of the car. And he's very impressed with her that she knew right where the car crashed. And she's like, you know, I know this river because my family has lived here for generations and we own this land. And that's why I kind of know this river. And just as she's saying this, there's some men approaching. And this man named Solaris wants to know why Marissa and her mother are ignoring his offer. And you're like, what does that mean? And he says this offer is more than fair. Marissa comes back with, we're not selling our house or our land. Gambit steps in and says to Solaris that the lady and her mother are not the ones they need to be worried about. You see, the man that ran Gambit and Ro off the road works for Solaris. And well, Gambit wants to have a talk with him. Solaris tells Gambit whatever happened, he's sure it was an accident. Marissa says the girl's in critical condition. Gambit looks at Solaris and lets him know that the girl loved that car, and now it's gone. Where he comes from, people take things like this very seriously. Solaris says that sounds like a threat. Perish the thought, but men should always be careful, driving the wrong car off the road. Gambit has a charged card behind his back and finishes saying, you never know what might come back at you. Boom! Solaris' men scatter, terrified at what they just saw. In the truck ride back to her house, Marissa says she's never seen anyone so scared before, especially Solaris. You scared me too. She asks if that was a trick that he did. Gambit says she owes him an explanation, because what happened the other day was no accident. Solaris wants her scared, or worse. Where Marissa lives is some of the best farmland in the world. Solaris wants the land for big real estate. Some sold out, but the other ones that didn't, that's when accidents started to happen, and nobody seems to care. Not the banks, the media, or the government. They're on their own. Ro is being trained by Ashake, and it's not going well for Ro. She thinks it's not fair. She almost died. Ashake says, you think the Shadow King will care? Your mother died saving your life, and your father trying to save you both. Is this how you honor their sacrifice? By giving up? Not our Ro. So after hearing what Solaris is saying to Marissa, Gambit kind of steps in and kind of tells him, hey, they're not the people you need to be worried about. The guy who ran me off the side of the road, he actually works for Solaris, and Gambit wants to talk with him. That girl, she loved that car, and now it's gone. People where I come from, they kind of take that very seriously. Solaris says that sounds like a threat. Gambit's like, nah. But the whole time he's charging a card behind him, and he chucks it at him. And the guys explode away, and they're terrified. So Gambit and Marissa get back into the car, and she's talking to him, and she's like, I've never seen anybody that scared before, especially Solaris. She's like, you kind of scared me too. That thing you did back there, that was a trick that you can do? So, assuming she doesn't know about his mutant abilities, or maybe they don't know about mutants where they're from. I'm assuming they do, depending on where in the timeline that this is with the X-Men. Because we found out, from the first issue that obviously there is X-Men, because the Shadow King got into Ro's head and said that they would kill the X-Men, blah, 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 whatever. Gambit tells Marissa that she owes him an explanation, because what happened the other day with the car going off the side of the road, that was no accident. Solaris wants her scared, or even worse. So where Marissa is from is some of the best farmland in the world. And Solaris wants it for some big real estate projects, and there were people in the town that did sell out, but there were some that didn't. And for the some that didn't, that's when accidents starting to happen. And apparently no one in the town helps them. Not the banks, not the sheriff, not anybody, not the government, nothing. No one will help them. They're on their own. We get more of Ro training, and she's kind of getting her butt kicked. She's like, this isn't fair. I almost died. And Ashake goes and tells her, you think the Shadow King will care? You know, your mother died trying to save you, and your father died trying to save you both. Is this how you're going to repay their memory and their sacrifice, by giving up? Ro's like, never. We're never going to do that. So we see a little bit more of the story developing. Marissa and her mom have this trouble. There's someone trying to buy their land. And it's kind of like every Midwest movie you've ever seen. I'm not selling. I've been here since '06. And my family found gold in them hills. And stuff and planted corn. And I know this river.
Do not sell this farm, Ray. You gotta keep this farm.
Gambit showing off his mutant power. That was kind of interesting. So he must trust Marissa not to turn them in. I don't know if there's the anti-mutant agency yet. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure where this takes place in the timeline. Ro is young, so it's got to be early. Has to be early, but Gambit's also a part of the X-Men, so, or maybe he's not. I'm not sure. I just know that the X-Men were mentioned. It would be nice to know. And like I said, guys, there's things I'm going to get wrong.
Move this man!
Okay? Because, like I said, I'm just getting back into the full swing of things. It's going to take a while before I know, like, continuity and things like that. So if I make mistakes, like I said, just tell me in the comments. It's not going to hurt my feelings. So Gambit can help Marissa and his mother and get his revenge for what happened to him and Ro. Gambit and Marissa talk about the town that she lives in, and Gambit says he's going to help with Solaris. He says skunks like him have to be taught a lesson. They're about to kiss, but Gambit grabs Marissa and dives out of the way because a bat is being swung at his head. Solaris' men are back and they're in full attack mode, but what we learned a little bit before when Marissa took Gambit back to the river is that she is actually an ex-Marine. She took after her father, and she gets the better of one of these guys with a swift kick to the face. It's awesome. Gambit flicks one of his cards and it explodes behind some of the men, scattering them. There's a mystery man watching from the shadows, and he muttering to himself that Solaris' men are amateurs. Told Solaris to be patient, that this was a mistake, but Solaris wants a TV resolution, fast and quick, but it's not gonna happen with these two. She's a force, a recon marine. The Cajun, he's something far more dangerous. He's got superpowers, but lucky for him. The man picks up Marissa's truck and hurls it at them. Thinking fast, she grabs Gambit and dives off the dock, avoiding the explosion. Ro is still in training. She's lost all sense of time. This place? What is it? Here there's no need for food, sleep, or any of the basic human necessities. She fights, she learns. She fights, well, she hasn't won yet. But she's getting there, and that's when things start to go wrong. Ro yells for Ashake. There's smoke everywhere. Is this part of the training? Ro wakes up in the real world, shocked to see she's in a fire. She has to escape. She falls out of bed to see a woman lying there, a doctor. But where's Remy? The fire is all around, and she screams for Ashake. Why would she train me all this time just to die in a fire? Wait, is that thunder? Rain? Ashake must have heard me. A storm! She wishes she had powers that worked like Ashake's and Remy's. Controlling weather would be great. She could heal the world. Ro grabs the doctor and starts heading out of the house. But when she makes it out, standing there are men she's never seen, and she doesn't think they're here to help. Down by the river, Marissa and Remy make it out alive, and they kiss. Marissa wonders what happened to her mother and Ro. Gambit says until they know otherwise, they have to assume they're alive. What do they do now? Well, they save them, of course. Marissa reminds Gambit that they have a man that just threw a truck at them. Gambit chuckles. Trust me, we are going to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. The mystery man picks up Marissa's truck, throws it at Gambit and Marissa. She grabs Gambit, jumps off the dock into the water, avoids the explosion. They cut to Ro still training, and it's weird because in this place she's like thinking, I don't need food, I don't need sleep. None of the normal human necessities are needed here. She's just fighting and learning and She hasn't won yet, but she's getting close. And when she starts getting close, that's when things get bad for her. Ro's yelling for a shake, and she's not calling back, but she smells smoke. And then all of a sudden it get hard for her to breathe. And then she wakes up and she's like, oh crap, she's back in the real world and she's in a fire. And it scares her and she freaks out, falls off the bed. She notices a doctor laying there and she's just like, what the heck is going on? Where's Remy? Like, damn. So she starts screaming for a shake and she's like, for help. And she's like, this can't be why I'm being trained by her to just die in a fire. Then she hears thunder and she's like, what is that? What is that? And a storm starts happening. Rain comes down. And this is very interesting. She's like, Ashake must have heard me. I've been saved. And she wishes she had powers that worked like Ashake's and Remy's, because controlling weather would be awesome. She could help save the world. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Didn't she do that in the first comic where Remy made her go break into the guy's house and do all this stuff, but he ended up already being in there and she made that storm cloud above his head and soaked him? Or was that just like in her mind? Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like she she doesn't know she has power, but she does. Like, it's a little ambiguous right there. That was a little bit weird. So who knows? She's been, messed up. Maybe the hit in the head. She knows that Remy has power. She just doesn't know that she does, or who knows? So she grabs the doctor and trying to save her, and she makes it out to the entrance of the house. And when she gets out there, she notices that there are men there. We got the mystery man there, Solaris, and she's just like, oh crap. She knows that these guys aren't here to help. So they cut back to Marissa and Remy. They make it up above the water and they kiss. They're like, oh, we're saved. Let's make out. Gambit's like, oh, yeah. I'm good at this.
Let's have a kiss before you go, huh? Could be you need incentive. How about the winner get a kiss from the loser?
But Marissa has wondered what happened to her mother and Ro. Gambit's like, look, as far as we know, until we know otherwise, we have to assume they're alive. And she's like, well, what are we going to do next? And he says, well, we're going to save them, of course. She reminds him, Gambit, they had a guy that picked up my truck and threw it at us. And he's like, oh, we're going to teach these people a lesson they'll never forget. And that's where the comic ends. I thought this comic was done very well. The story is getting engaging. Like, there wasn't a ton of action in it, but that didn't matter because the story beats that they're laying down is going to lead to a bunch of action. I mean, we got Storm learning how to fight and probably harness her abilities towards the end. She's learning hand-to-hand combat first to be a fierce warrior, to go along with her powers, which is going to be incredible. We also have Solaris binding the services of who that mystery man was. That's Warhawk, which is very interesting. We'll get into him in a little bit here, which is, I thought was really cool. Very crazy character. And that's going to be awesome. So we got Ro being trained and probably going to figure out her powers at some point, learn how to control them. We got Gambit and Marissa going to be going after her mother and Ro, taking on Solaris' guys and Warhawk. So sorry for the background humming. My heater just kicked on. So I'm going to read a little bit about Warhawk here. This is a combination of the Marvel wiki and his regular wiki. Warhawk's real name is Mitchell Tanner. He was an American soldier who lost his contingent during the Vietnam War and was adopted by a native tribe. The war also swept his new family away. So, got his group of guys, they got defeated. He ended up being nursed back to health and brought in by a native tribe. War came through there still, and bam, they got killed. And he was seriously wounded. And he was recovered by the army, and to save his life, he was subjected to an experimental treatment by a Dr. Bernstein. And this experimental treatment was a variation of the super soldier serum. Same stuff that Captain America got, but probably, like they said, a variation of it because they could never perfect it again. The result was steel-like skin and super strength. In some regard, Bernstein sees Tanner as an older brother to his later test subject, Luke Cage. So that's cool. There's tying into other heroes from the Marvel comics universe, so that's pretty cool. And they say perhaps the stress of seeing his home village in Vietnam being destroyed and his wife being murdered, or perhaps a side effect of Bernstein's experiment, Mitchell Tanner soon became mentally unbalanced, and Warhawk became an assassin used for the CIA in Vietnam. He later went further insane and battled Iron Fist. So, yeah, he went up against Iron Fist and probably did with other guys. I know he was hired. I remember he was hired to assassinate Atom Smasher. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that he had done. He's got an organic steel body. He's got superhuman strength, superhuman stamina, superhuman durability, accelerated healing factor. So that's who they're up against. That's who Solaris has retained in his employ. I think this is going to get really, really cool, guys. I think they're on issue like 5 or 6 or something like that. We're going to continue to do these issues. I give the writing in this, I give a 3 because I think it's going somewhere. And Chris Claremont is one of those guys that builds a lot of foundation, a lot of building blocks, and then gives you these big payoffs to them, and I think that's cool. And I know for people that have read the X-Men for a long time, I'm sure this is giving them little cool Easter eggs and treats along the way that pertain to his older writing. The art this time, I also give a 3. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's fantastic. It suits the comic book well, and yeah. So what do you guys think about this Gambit series? I think it's shaping up to be really fun. I think the characters are written well. I think the pace is good. Yeah, I really like this whole small town type thing, guy coming in and kind of shoving them around. It reminds me of a lot of movies. I'm sure you've seen that type of thing. But the introduction of Warhawk kind of changes things. This is going to be really cool. It's going to be an awesome fight because it's kind of hard to take down super soldiers. So we're going to see what Gambit does. And I think it's going to be really cool. And with Ro learning how to fight and her powers probably coming into being, that's going to be crazy. It's a little bit confusing with her saying that she wished she had powers like that. We don't know what that means. Obviously, it was Storm who conjured that storm. So, yeah, her subconscious could be doing something that she doesn't know that she's doing. But, all right, guys, I appreciate you all being here. Next time on The Lapsed Comic Fan, we will be doing Dark Crisis number 5. There's only 7 issues of Dark Crisis, and we are on the 5th one, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in next time to The Lapsed Comic Fan. I'm Steve. Peace out, y'all. I got Pac-Man pants. I got Pac-Man pants. Pants of Pac-Man. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Ours was good, but the day after, my wife got some terrible news. Her brother has passed away, and I just wanted to say, Chad, you will be missed, and we always loved you, man. Rest in peace, my friend.